Do you know what experts say is a difference between people who give up and those who don't? It's optimism. That frequency is easily accessible to all of us. And sometimes you just need to get quiet. Put your phone down, stop doom scrolling, and let yourself sit in the silence so you can start to hear it. 80% of us are holding ourselves back because of our negative relationship with ourselves, and it's with our inner saboteur, that little voice inside your head that talks trash about you to you. 80%. That's huge, but it doesn't have to be that way. Even if it's been that way for years or decades or most of your life, you can start to change it immediately.
I'm so excited to have you today. We were just chatting pre-show and I was walking through the life model. But one of the most important things about the life model to me is optimism. And I understand that optimism is one of your superpowers. Talk to me a little bit about the power of optimism and how it's impacted your life.
Okay, Scott, optimism has been my superpower since I've been a kid. And I'm going to pause for a second. And do you know what experts say is a difference between people who give up and those who don't? It's optimism. You probably guessed that was the right answer. And when I think back throughout my life, I'm the daughter of a delicatessen owner from Columbia, South Carolina. And I chose at a young age, subconsciously, that I was going to look for the upside, that I was going to see obstacles as temporary setbacks. And from that, I got into a good school, put myself through college, and that desire to feel that things could possibly get better in the future has helped me overcome. I went from divorce to a happy marriage. My husband and I have been together for 16 years. I went from financial challenges to prosperity. I went from some really critical health problems to a state of constant wellness. And I was able to create a purpose-driven career in life. So optimism has really been the fuel for all of that goodness.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's very important. Sometimes optimism isn't the first thought, but as long as you recognize that you're moving away from it and you can move towards the light, towards the positivity, it is such a big thing. I find myself sometimes, especially, in business settings, in life, you sometimes will be like, "Oh, this could go this way or this could go that way." And you're like, "But what if it doesn't? What if we can shape the direction? What if this is the best thing to ever happen to us, not the worst thing to ever happen to us?" And one of my little cousins this weekend, he had a bad ankle sprain, and he was all bundled up. He had these with his cast and whatever they had set his ankle, and he had these little tiny crutches. And I was joking with him, calling him Tiny Tim, and he didn't know what that meant. Of course, it was a 70-year-old reference, but um, he he was bummed, and I was like, "What are you bummed?" I got down on one knee. I was like, "What are you bummed about?" He's like, "I can't go in the beach. It's right there, and I can't go in the sand." And I said, "Yeah, it's just temporary, though. Think of how strong your leg's going to be when you get healed. Think of how fast you're going to run, and how simple and quick this will be." And I was just trying to help him reframe it, because again, that optimism can be a superpower for not just you, but for belief in other people, right?
Absolutely. And do you feel that he really heard your message?
I think he did. Yeah, he's like 10 years old, at 9
Okay.
years old. So he's my cousin's kid. So I don't even know what that it makes him, like a uh second cousin,
Yes.
removed
Yes.
once removed, or one of those kind of things. But we're a big family, and so everybody still gets together. But I did kind of see his face shift from, okay, I can get behind this. And I think it's such a simple reference, but I love how the power of optimistic thinking not only helps people, internally, but it helps so many people on the outside as well. We can really make a difference in someone's life.
Absolutely. And it's surprisingly easy to start cultivating an attitude of optimism, even if you're the kind of person that not only thinks the glass is half empty, but it's broken and lying cracked in the ground. You can authentically start to shift that attitude one step at a time.
So obviously, optimism has to be a superpower that also helps people get unstuck. And I have your book here, Get Unstuck and Live the Life You Want, Free and Clear. And I read the beginning part, and I saw that you dedicated it to your mom, who asked you to write a cool book,
Ah,
right? A book that she could read. So was it successful? Did Is this what mom wanted to read?
my mom is so proud. She's 87 years old. She still plays mahjong with her friends once a week. She has the book lying on the mahjong table, and she calls it her book. So, yes, I succeeded in delighting Faye Miller.
And isn't that awesome? Like, it's funny. I always like to go to the dedications or the acknowledgments, and it gives me a little insight into the why behind this. And I know you're very purpose driven. Talk to me about writing this book, about putting this message out there. You do a lot of messaging every day. Why was this message so important to get out?
I felt it was important because so many of the time people feel stuck. And in these days, it feels there's so much uncertainty. Things are constantly changing that we need to find a way to trust ourselves more. And, when I speak, a lot of it is about activating the remarkable. And this particular book, I am passionate about people helping them get unstuck and find what is remarkable within themselves. And so this is a step-by-step process for identifying how you feel the most stuck and exercises that you can take to do something about it. So I try to break down what can feel overwhelming and give people not only hope, but an actual roadmap of here's how you can get unstuck, whether it's personally or professionally, and some area of your life, and start surging forward.
How many times are relationships stuck? And how many times are is it the relationships that are potentially holding someone back? I would imagine you see this and feel this a lot. And sometimes it could be, I would imagine, the precursor to the greatest thing that could ever, be a catalyst to your life. And sometimes it could be something that's holding you back from that life you really need to live. Talk to me a little bit about relationships, because I think people like that topic on this show a lot, and it's always something that we can relate to in general.
Your relationships are so critical. The people that you surround yourself, they can support you, they can lift you up, or conversely, they can take you away off the path of your dreams. So you need to surround yourself with people that you're aligned with. When you get to select, some relationships are people who you love and are related to, but they might not have been like a choice of a friend. So I think it is important to bring as many good forces and healthy relationships in your life as possible. And if you feel like they're not that way, there's some questions that you can ask yourself. Is this relationship serving me? If not, can I improve it? And sometimes, Scott, we need to let go of what's not working for us so that we can find our higher purpose and we can have more fulfilling lives.
Yeah, I read a book many years ago by Dr. Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings. And it's an interesting dynamic because when applied to relationships, if you just look at things as they are today, and you look at the relationship and what you want. I have in my life box, love are the who's in my life that matter most, the who's in our lives that essentially light us up, give us energy, provide us that drive to want to be more around those individuals. I spend, a little bit of time every year writing down some of the names of the people that I really enjoyed getting to know this year. Maybe I want to get to know on a deeper level. I also have made a practice of writing down some of the names that maybe suck some energy out of my life or weren't leading me in the right direction. And it's identifying those things. But that necessary ending was something that when I came upon, it was like, sometimes it just runs its course, and the relationship got you to where you are, but it's not going to get you to where you want to go. And I feel like that's what you're saying. When you're stuck, you have to really kind of dive deep into how that relationship is feeding you towards your ultimate objective or goal.
Absolutely. And part of that, it's not just the relationship with others, it's your relationship with yourself. And you might be the biggest barriers standing in your own way of having the very best life possible.
Yeah. How many times does self-sabotage come into that conversation? How many times do you see people that are right there on the precipice of success, and every time they get close, they tend to blow it up themselves because that relationship with themselves isn't so secure.
You know, the statistic is unfortunately quite high. If I think of the book Positive Intelligence, are you familiar
I've heard
with?
it, yes.
Okay, it's terrific by Shirz. I'm not going to say his name exact. Shirzad Shamin. His estimate is that 80% of us are holding ourselves back because of our negative relationship with ourselves, and it's with our inner saboteur. You know that little voice inside your head that talks trash about you to you? And think about that. 80%. That's that's huge, but it doesn't have to be that way. Even if it's been that way for years or decades or most of your life, you can start to change it immediately.
Yeah, it's so funny how important the inner dialogue is, though. Like, if we think about it, how valuable is that inner dialogue? I remember a couple of years ago, I was playing golf at a really, really fancy golf course that I had no business being on. And and they paired me with the pro of the golf course. And so it was me and the golf pro, and this guy was phenomenal. He was young, he's probably like 27, 28 years old, and wanted to be a pro on the PGA Tour. And I rode in the cart with him, and I'm awful. I mean, I just don't play a lot of golf, so this should give you a little insight. I play a couple times a year, but it was more like a business thing, and it was I had to play. So I don't want to say the golf course because it's easy to look up who the pros are. And the bottom line is, as I rode around with this individual, he was amazing. Every shot was so close, and he was so angry at himself the whole round. So we're like 3 or 4 holes in, Shira, and he is talking out loud about how bad he's playing. And I said, man, I have a question for you. If you talk to yourself this bad out loud, how bad are you talking to yourself in your head right now? And he goes, oh, if you could only hear me. I said, that's what's holding you back, though. At the end of the day, we've got to have grace for ourselves and look at the situation and see how we can get out of it. And I mean, I coached him all the way through the round, and I said, man, I can't help you in any way with your golf game, but with the physical golf, but I could certainly help you if you just speak to yourself a little bit kinder, have a little bit of grace. You are much better than you're giving yourself credit for. And I said, take it from a guy who's not good at golf. But it was so interesting to your point, the self-sabotaging. He was probably inches away from being as good as any other pro that you see out there, but his mental game was so challenging. It was holding him back significantly.
I think that is a real gift that you happen to be in the cart with him. So you could give him that perspective. And I hope he absorbed it.
He seemed to be very, very appreciative. And, a lot of that comes back to our childhood. A lot of it comes back to maybe the way that we felt we had to show our value or show our worth. And when you detach from some of those old school thinking mentalities and move towards what you're aiming for, I would imagine that's what you did. You said you used optimism to flip around your relationship life, to have a better career, to overcome um, your medical challenges. I mean, what are some of those? What are some of the stories? What are some of the ways that you did that? Share with our listeners some of the secrets.
Absolutely. And it's pretty simple. So when I say that as a kid, I kind of figured that out, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I felt a little bit better about things if I believed that, and I see the belief sign behind you, which I love. Thank you, Ted Lasso.
Love
So
Ted Lasso.
me too. And I just knew that I felt better because it was so heavy to always feel negative. And so things that I do now is, and I've got some of these tips in the book too. I journal. I try to get perspective. I also visualize a different scenario. So I'll give you a personal example, and that is I'm very happily married now. I went through a bad divorce, didn't have kids, but I knew that This was the time to walk away from that marriage. This is a 25 years ago. And that was really hard. And then, worked on myself, dated a lot of different guys. And when I reached a spot that I was ready to meet the right guy, a lot of it was visualization. And I was really open and honest about, what kind of guy would truly light me up and support me for the person I was then. I met my husband when I was, around 40. And so, I was just so open. My husband's 5 years younger than I am. I never would have been open to that beforehand. And things were even better. But it's because I let it be possible instead of putting it into this tight little box. And I let myself be delighted by what showed up. So, journaling to get perspective, visualizing what's possible. And I'll tell you something else that helps. And this is just a little trick, and I do it almost every day. And I call it the 5 things that I did for myself. You can do this in the morning or you can do it in the night. So let's say you're doing it at night, and I try to list 5 things that I did for myself that day. And I mean, it can't be things like, oh, I did laundry or I cleaned the kitchen, because that's not for you. It's got to be, I had a great workout this morning. I got enough sleep. I'm talking to Scott on a podcast. That's kind of cool, right? It's things like that. And I remember when I first started doing this, often I just have one thing. I love to work out in the morning, so I'd almost always have that. But it encouraged me to actively look for those good things. And now most days I have at least 5, sometimes 8, 9, or 10 things. And it calms my mind down before I go to sleep, and it just sets me up for the next day.
So by journaling, paying attention to it, it's almost like a lot of people will use a gratitude practice where they look back on their day, the things they're grateful for. I think that's a phenomenal recommendation and something that's very, very valuable, obviously, not only in your life, but in so many that I've seen as well. And I've also will look at that. I found when I was growing up, I was always, if you don't provide time to yourself or for yourself, you get to the end of the day and you're trying to binge watch a show or you're staying up later because you didn't have any time to yourself. I remember telling myself these things when I was younger. And then I'd be tired the next day and then I wouldn't get the workout in. And you repeat the cycle of the things you don't want, not the things that you do want. And so when you start your day with things that make you feel alive, like your workout, that's a great point. I do the same thing. And so at the end of the night, I know that I've gotten those things done. I can pay attention to them. I can write them down. I can journal them in my phone. Um, Something, Share, that I always find valuable, and I'm curious to your opinion of this, is I believe that there's a frequency that we have to almost tune into. And I think that so many people are not tuned into the frequency of good things. And it's not just optimism. It's like just there's so much cool stuff that's happening in and around you. If you're tuned in, you could be looking at it from a perspective of how can I help this person? How can this person potentially help me? How can we help each other? What are some things that they're doing that I want to do more of in my life? And the curiosity and the questions create a environment where this frequency becomes so hard to not hear or see. And that seems to be what I've seen in my life. I mean, it's just that positive frequency is so powerful because you're tuned into it. And it seems like that's the same thing that's happening in yours.
I love hearing that because I think that frequency is easily accessible to all of us. And sometimes you just need to get quiet, put your phone down, stop doom scrolling, and let yourself sit in the silence so you can start to hear it. And people are uncomfortable with that. So when you can really, I talk in the book about taking a pause. It could be for 10 minutes, it could be for 10 days. It's just getting quiet so you can hear that frequency. You can hear yourself without so many outside interferences, and you can start tuning into it. If you can look for one good thing in your life a day, and it might be, I found $20 in my pocket. I caught the bus before it left. I helped somebody at work by giving them good advice. Or maybe this, if you're going through a really difficult time, maybe it's, I just survived the day. That counts. You find one good thing, then you can start to build on it.
Yeah, I love that. One of the secrets that I've found to be valuable is something I call the habit of daily impact.
Mm.
And when I'm having one of those days, and they don't happen very often, but where you feel like it's a survival day, and there are days that are survival days. All right, things aren't they're kind of moving in a direction that you don't see the value in them in that moment, or it's extremely challenging or emotional from a family perspective, whatever it may be. I found that in those moments, I look for little tiny moments to do something nice for someone else. And so, what that means is it's the simplicity of holding the door for somebody, of complimenting the guy or the girl behind the register at the gas station or the grocery store. It's just smiling at someone in an elevator, putting your phone down, smiling and starting a brief conversation with someone. And and it may be as big as giving a gift to somebody, or volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club, or whatever it may be. But if every time that happens they become stackable, meaning that you can't just do one. It's infectious. And when it becomes infectious, your entire brain shifts. Everything about your body, your movement, your aura, your energy, everything shifts. And you often find yourself not having a survival day at all. And I have so many stories of things that's happened like that, but it wasn't always like that. It's something I had to really focus on. It's almost like, okay, I know what I need to do here. I need to figure out how to help somebody else. And when we take it off ourselves, it's amazing how valuable that becomes to ourselves.
I know this is your show, but may I ask you a question? Because you
Yeah,
are so passionate about this. And I'm glad because you are a multiplier of good in the world. Was there a specific catalyst that got you to start doing that and building that stackable habit?
I think that understanding that giving is selfish in a positive way. So what I mean by that is giving is something that makes me feel better often than the very gift I can provide somebody else. And the more I give to the world, the more successful my life becomes, the more value I add to other people, the more friends I have. So the giving of yourself is easy to see the big things. So I think the catalyst is seeing it in the small things was something that I started to pay attention to, and they were things I always did, but I would stop doing when I got in a funk. And so it was more about recognizing the habit that I wasn't participating in, and that my whole energy has changed. I've always believed, Share, that we are the energy we put out into the world. And if you are not doing the very things that make you who you are, that's often when you're furthest away from that best version. So I can't say that there was I think that I've always been somebody who wants to bring light into the room. So, like you as a child, I learned that through comedy, through energy, through fun stories, optimism, I could make the most out of just about anything. But it was more about finding that rhythm and then making it consistent. And the older you get, I think it's more about that frequency and more about kind of flipping it when there are some tougher things that happen. Because you listed some tough things. Divorce isn't easy, whether it's yesterday or 25 years ago. Medical conditions are not easy because you immediately go into, oh, I work out, I do all the right things. Why is this happening to me? So we just have to really shift. And I think the older we get, the better we get at shifting quicker, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, it's our accumulated wisdom and it's making a choice. Like you said, even if you get in a funk, you make the choice that, just the acts of kindness or acts of kindness to others help you. And it's so true. I think about, I have this little voice in my head that when I notice something about people, I want to share it with them. And it could be something small, you look great today, holding open a door. I remember I was in a hotel gym, I was traveling for work, and I saw this younger guy, and he was diligently cleaning off every piece of equipment. you know, we both are gym goers. A lot of people don't do that. So I went up to him afterwards and I went, I just want you to know how much I appreciate how considerate you are. And he was so taken aback, but he felt so seen. And, he's going to say something positive to somebody that day. It, like you said, it's a ripple effect. You do it to the other person, they're going to pass it along, and soon we have a better place.
I think to that point, it's a great point. And I think that when you think about social media today
Mm.
and all the scrolling and all the detachment that people find themselves in, they feel connected because they see their friends' kids and they get to take part and comment under someone's post. And yet there's no real true interaction and there's no real connection. And it's not enough, at least. And I think when you go up to somebody and they feel seen, you've added a multiplier to the day. It's like a 10x, result comparatively to just a like on their Instagram post. It's so much more powerful. And I think people are searching for a little bit more connection nowadays because of the distractions and detachments that we have by our side at all times, our phones.
Yes, yes.
How big is the phone as helping us to get unstuck? I mean, when you think about getting out of our own face and looking at ourselves, what a interesting dynamic, right? We're just looking into our own self the whole time. How big do you think that is as a part of kind of helping people get unstuck?
Getting away from the phone is one of the best things you can do, particularly at night. I used to really struggle with sleep, and then I realized it's because I was scrolling. I was not fully watching a TV show or talking to my hubby or doing whatever. And so I don't look at a phone unless there's a crisis at work. Hey, in case boss hears this, I don't look at a phone up to 2 hours before bedtime because I need to start calming my brain down. And it's so ironic that something that's supposed to make our life better. I mean, you can have meditation apps, you can have all sorts of happy, good news feeds on your phone, but you still need to step away. Otherwise, you're just looking at this little box instead of the world at large and who you want to connect to. Going back to relationships, look at people around you. They're much more interesting than whatever your phone has to say.
It's 100% true. I told my wife the other day, we were when we got married, I remember saying, I don't want a television in our bedroom ever. I
Bingo.
have no interest with the television being in our bedroom. And for years, like that was a big deal. All of our friends had TVs in their bedroom. They would watch TV before they went to bed. What a greater distraction. There's no greater distraction than TV in the bedroom until, I got up a couple of months ago and I was like, wow, we never ever we're remodeling our house. And Adrian, my wife, says to me, should we put a TV in the bedroom? And I was like, no, still no TV in the bedroom. I said, honestly, we got to get the phones out of our bedroom. Like the phones have infiltrated the very thing we were trying to avoid with the TV. And now it's our own level of distraction when we wake up, when we go to sleep. There's a distraction that we were avoiding for all these years. We've been married 23 years. And so it's just interesting to me how I hadn't even really noticed it because of your point that they help us in so many ways that it wasn't something that I was overtly recognizing until I started looking at the remodel. Then I was like, oh my gosh, it's the very thing I wanted out of the bedroom.
I heard that statistic years ago. So I remember when Justin and I started dating, I'm like, no, I don't believe in TV in the bedroom. And he was very much the kind of person that would watch it. And so he's like, okay, I'm in love with you. I'll listen to it. And what's funny now is, last night it's 10 o'clock. I'm reading a book and he starts reading news headlines to me. And I look at him and I go, I really love you. And I don't need news headlines before bed because I will not sleep very well.
Right.
So that's that little box is the TV because I no just want good stuff before bed.
Well, the notifications alone. I
Oh,
mean, the notifications alone. I take a power nap a lot and I turn my phone on airplane mode and I hit do not disturb. And I only do like a 20 to 25-minute power nap. I mean, it's pretty consistent and I try to do it also just to find calm in the day because the days are so busy sometimes and so excessive that I'm like, you know what? I just want to have a moment of peace. I don't always fall asleep, but I really try, right? When I turn that phone off for that 25 to 30 minutes, the number of notifications that pop up when I turn it back on are so dramatic. It's like text, 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 notification, news, news, news. And you forgot to do this. Hey, your order from Target has arrived. Like everything is so distracting. And so it definitely is hard to focus when that's something that you have in your hand at all times. At the same time, this has also allowed me to go further, travel more, allow me to do things from anywhere that I never would have been able to. And so, in some ways, I'm very grateful. I think I'm most grateful for FaceTime. I love looking at someone's
Right.
face while I get to actually communicate with them.
Oh, I love that. My husband's British. His company moved him over here before we met. So it's wonderful, to be able to talk to my brother and sister-in-law in the UK. It's like FaceTime. It just connects. It connects us. It's a beautiful thing. And God, what a lifesaver during the pandemic when you couldn't see people. At least we have that.
Yeah, that's huge. So, obviously, when we talk about getting unstuck, you talk a lot about finding the remarkable. Let's talk a little bit about remarkable because I think that's I've seen you talk about it. I think it's a unique perspective. How do people find their remarkable?
The first point I want to make is that we all already have the remarkable inside of us. And when I'm talking about remarkable, it's the ability to do something extraordinary or to make a big impact. And uh, sometimes we just need help seeing it, whether you need to get unstuck or have someone else point it out to you, but it's there. We're born with it. So that's once you realize that, then you can start to tap into your potential. And I remember years ago, I used to think that the remarkable was reserved for just a few people. Maybe somebody's super lucky or had great connections or, won the jackpot with talent, but it's it's accessible for everybody. And that's what I help people with. I've got a process when I'm talking to different people, giving my keynotes about, there's a 3-step process for activating the remarkable in your team members. And, you really need to start with yourself. And that look at us bringing it full circle. It's going back to optimism. It's finding it in yourself and actively looking for one good thing a day so that, oh, I can see this positive thing. I can start to see how I can shine. And now I start to see it in the people that I work with. Then I can see those people. I can recognize them. I can spark possibility and optimism, and I can help create growth opportunities for them and for myself. So it's a beautiful circle once you get it activated.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting when you are able to see what you do that most people can't. And everybody has that je ne sais quoi, and whatever it is that I don't know what it's that thing that you do, but when you find it and then you actually utilize it to help people in the world, it's very very powerful and can help you, make deeper friendships and better relationships and can provide you more purpose in your life and you're passionate about everything you're doing. I think so many times people do things they're good at, but it's not what they're best at. And if you could really find the thing that you're best at and lean into it, that's where life becomes really powerful.
It's so true. And, Scott, I've got an exercise that I'd love to share with you that might be of interest that can help people instantly build confidence and start activating the remarkable. I call it a reverse bucket list. Would you like to hear about it?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, the concept of a bucket list, things we want to do before we kick the bucket, before we, die. So, in this case, it's about acknowledging everything that we've already done. So, give yourself, 5 minutes and start making a list of everything that you've accomplished. And don't just focus on business. I mean, I want people, did you put yourself through college? Did you break a family cycle of addiction? Did you learn how to plant an herb garden in your backyard? You know, I ask people, write down everything you can think about and then give yourself a couple of minutes to look at it. And what that does when you see it written out, you know, and write it by hand, you can put it, you know, on your phone, on your laptop. That is your evidence, your proof of what you've already done. That's remarkable. And it enables you to go, what else is possible? If I can do this, I can go ask for a promotion at work. Or if I can do this, I can go from couch potato to eventually do a triathlon. It shows you that you are so capable and talented and great.
Yeah, what a great way to build confidence. I think it's also a great tool to just be grateful with all the things that you've done. I find it interesting because I've had so many wonderful things that I've been able to do. Sometimes eating in a super nice restaurant or going to a basketball game that, you know, I always dreamed of seeing Duke play UNC at Duke and for college basketball. And my brother and I went a couple years ago, and I think that in some ways I'm so numb from doing so many cool things that an exercise like that also grounds me back to like the childlike version that remembers how awesome it was to dream about doing some of these things, you know. And my kids often will remind me of these things. A couple years ago, we go to the Dallas Cowboys games once a year in Dallas. We're fans. It's been a rough year so far this year, but um, my oldest son was in high school and it was his senior year, and he was asking me, he's like, "What game are we going to, Dad? What game are we going to a game?" And I'm downplaying it because I'm trying to, in my brain, I'm like, I don't want him to feel like he's spoiled. I don't want him to, you know, I don't want to just have him assume we're going every year. Like in my brain, I'm trying to almost diminish it a little bit. And I said, well, it's probable that we'll go. I'll figure out which one. And he looked at me, and I've told the story before early on in the podcast, but it's a good time to tell it again. And he said, he goes, you know, Dad, I really look forward to this. I know you get to do a lot of really fun stuff, but this is not something that's normal for me, and I'm super excited about it. So when you know, can you just tell me so I can start planning and I can tell my friends and I can actually be a part of it? And I remember feeling really bad about how I was controlling the dynamic, but it was really I was trying to make it more. I was downplaying it for him in a way because of my own insecurities, of my own feeling like I was providing too much, or maybe had nothing to do with him. And it was a great reference point for me to go, hey, other people don't always get to live this very, very special life that you've been blessed with. Even your own children aren't always doing the things that you have gotten to do, and sometimes even take for granted. And so I definitely adjusted, told him exactly what game we were going to, you know, and it made me appreciate it even more when we went. So you know, it's nice how other people can sometimes, going through an exercise like that, I feel like that's building confidence. It's adding gratitude. It's allowing us to really get in touch with what lights us up. What a great tool to help reverse bucket list. What a great tool to help you understand where you've been so you know where you can go.
Well, Scott, kudos for raising a grateful kid who really
Yes.
appreciated
Thank
the
you.
experience. And I have to ask, when you and your brother got to see Duke play, did you feel that childlike sense of, look, I made this happen? Were you
A little
excited?
bit, a little bit, a little bit. I have to be honest with you. Sometimes I have to, I have such a high, um, I don't even know how to explain it. I believe that I can accomplish anything. And so when you get to that point, it's not as like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here. And it was my brother on the ride back that looked at me and was like, dude, we just saw Duke Carolina play in Cameron and Duke won, and it was amazing. And we've been talking about this forever. That it was that. I mean, I have chills thinking about his response, but sometimes my viewpoint of how I can make something happen has become so powerful that I have to remind myself that these things aren't always normal. And I don't say that with like I'm just I really believe it. Like if you want something, I genuinely believe you can find a way for it to happen. And I've seen it happen. I've been blessed enough to make it happen. And my goal is to not just make it happen for me, but to make it happen for the people that the question revolves around. My brother, my sons, my wife and I doing things that we always dreamed of. It's just these are the things that I think are phenomenal. And if I did a reverse bucket list, they would all be on it. So it was his response to that really got me. Another example, Shira, is we were watching Zion Williamson, who played for Duke, and it was probably one of the coolest seasons of college basketball that I can remember. He was so dynamic. He had blown out of his Nike shoe. He was going to be like the best player to come out since LeBron James, who didn't go to college. And my sons and I were watching Sports Center one morning, and he was having this huge dunk, and I just thought to myself, why are we watching this NCAA tournament at home? Why don't I just take the kids and go to one of these games? And I that afternoon I bought tickets for my brother and my two sons, and we went to watch them play in the round of 16, the NCAA tournament. Saw Zion Williamson live, and so I it's that frequency though. It's not just my frequency. I'm so much more valuable when other people are helping me to see things that I otherwise wouldn't see.
Well, that's what your podcast does. You're helping so many people around the world reach for more and tune into that frequency for themselves.
Yeah, well, with guests like you who are helping them get unstuck, who are having these conversations, asking great questions. I look at this podcast, I say this every time, as like we're riding in the front seat of a car and we have a whole back seat filled with our friends, and we're having such a great conversation that people are just listening intently because it's things that make them think differently, whether it's the confidence builder that you're giving them, whether it's the gratitude, whether it's the moment of kind of realizing things are, wow, so good that sometimes I have to take a step back and just be reminded how amazing life is. These are all great traits. I don't care where you are, who you are. That's a really great thing.
Absolutely.
What do you love from an impact perspective? What's been a story or something that's really stood out from the book? I mean, you do pretty impactful things every day in your day job, so you have a pretty amazing gig, and you do some cool stuff. I know in the corporate world, you do a ton of keynotes, but with the book itself, what kind of impact have you seen? Are there any stories that stand out that really go, man, I'm so glad I put this out into the world outside of mom?
Outside of mom. But we do always have to start with her. What makes me feel wonderful is when somebody reads it and they send me a note and they tell me that it showed them what was possible, how they got unstuck. I'm thinking about an individual named Mike who reached out, who was working for another company, and he really started to think about, he wasn't very happy working for this other company. He was there a long time and started to think about doing his own thing. And he read the book, and it helped him realize that he needed to leave that situation that no longer worked. The guy, within a year of starting his own business, had doubled his income. Phenomenal. So
Wow.
it's getting those stories, and it doesn't have to be I mean, that's a huge story. It could just be someone saying, I ended a relationship that wasn't happy, and now I'm very happy with myself, or I am dating someone terrific, or I read your book and I realized that I can get healthy and start one step at a time. I'm walking now in the morning. I never did that before. So it's anybody who reaches out and tells me that that's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I think the more we put ourselves out there, sometimes, I told my sons this because they're both doing some small things on social media. One's going TikTok live on a regular basis, and the other started doing Bible study that he puts out every day, and he's putting out his own stuff. And I said, when you start to put yourself out there, sometimes the initial response isn't positive, and I want you to understand people close to you will start to question why you're doing it. Are you doing this for fame? Are you doing this for attention? Are you doing this? And I said, as long as you stay true to what you're doing it for, And if you're doing it to truly help people or to build a career or to develop something and it's got a bigger purpose outside of yourself, you're going to find it to be very valuable. And what happens is the mics start popping up in your life. People start saying, "Thank you so much for putting that out there." And my youngest son had done he started doing those posts, and one of his past teammates who plays for another academy in another city reached out and said, "Hey, me and my teammates have been watching your videos. Thanks for putting them out. They're really giving us some hope, and we're appreciative." And I was like, "See, it takes a little while, but then it starts to really cultivate. But you're putting yourself out there, but you're putting yourself out there for other people to help people."
Your son's having that ripple effect you talked about.
Yes. Yeah, they both are. They're both they're it's funny to listen to them, Shira, because they start to say things that sound like me. and and I'm very and it's not just things that you notice as a dad when you're growing up that are the bad things, because kids say a lot of things when you're raising them that sound like you, and it makes you feel really low, like it's like, damn, that's a part of me I don't want to hear or see again. And so when they start to do things that look and feel like the good parts, the parts that you're aiming towards, the future version of you, that's the point that really stands out, because then you're like, wow, that that sounds like me. I think I heard my son say the other day, you're the energy that you put out into the world. And I was like, I've heard that before. I've heard that. So it is fun, and it is something that is really impactful. But I know that when you put the book out, I don't think people understand how much work you put in to getting it to print. And then once it's in print, just self promoting it, that almost feels uncomfortable because you have to be this advocate for yourself. But when you know it's good and you know people, it can help people, you're really putting yourself out there, and it's for good reason.
My mission is to help people and companies get unstuck and activate their full potential. And the book was the first thing that I've done to try to make that happen, as well as my speaking. And, you know, if I am able to help a couple of people, dozens of people, hundreds of people, whatever the impact, I want to have a great ripple effect as well. That's why I'm here.
What's next for you? What are you working on? What's big? What are you putting out into the world that you're looking forward to?
I'm doing a lot of keynote speaking. My main keynote is called Activate the Remarkable, Build a Culture of Optimism and Engagement and Success. And I am speaking at some wonderful venues coming up. Some companies are hiring me. So I spoke at the Society for Human Resource Management this past summer. So I'm doing some big things with that. And that speaking is, for something that's so mission based for me, is really my greatest love.
That's awesome. So do you find it liberating to stand up on the stage and kind of share your mission and get that feedback, and then people are waiting afterwards to talk to you, and it's a pretty cool vibe, huh?
I love it. And it's funny if I think back to growing up, because you and I have referenced growing up. I remember being like a dorky 8 or 10-year-old doing Howard Cosell impersonations at our family gatherings. I didn't even need a microphone. I'd have like a hairbrush. So I've never been a wallflower. And now I actually have a message of substance, not trying to be a cheesy 1970s newscaster. So it brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, it's funny how connected joy is to our childhood. How we look at the child at being a child, and you're thinking of how it felt when you were doing that and the response you got from your family, and how it's correlated to the response you get today, but it's substantial. It's a mission and a message that's so much bigger than just making a couple of family members laugh.
Oh, they still laugh at me. Intentionally or not. But
Yeah.
yes, it's fantastic.
Well, that's awesome. Tell people how to find you. So I have a copy of your book. I'll say it again: Get Unstuck and Live the Life You Want, free and clear. Shira Miller, and the book looks like this. So if you're on Amazon or anywhere where books are sold, you can get that. But how else, if companies are listening and they want to hire you to speak, if there's opportunities to do more with this message of being remarkable or optimism, how do they find you?
go to shiramiller.com. That's SHIRA Miller.com. All of my info's there. There's a whole bunch of free resources, articles, videos, all sorts of good stuff. Check it out.
Well,
Thank you.
Shira, that's awesome. I'm super grateful to have you today. It's been great energy, great optimism, the reverse bucket list. We have real takeaways from this podcast. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Scott. This has been amazing.
All right, we're clear. I will hit stop. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.